What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with yet another schedule preview and record prediction video, and today I'm going to be doing my first Group of 5 team. We're going to be doing the UCF Golden Knights. UCF was a team that was really overlooked last year, and their season was overshadowed because McKenzie Milton went down with an injury. I believe it was an ACL tear, almost ruined his career in college football. He's making a pretty good recovery to be able to play again this season. And if he's not able to come back, I'm counting on the fact that he is. But if he's not able to come back, they still have great talent at quarterback with Dario Mack and Dylan Gabriel. And then their wide receiver position is pretty good as well. They have guys like Amari Johnson and Trey Nixon, both of which are the best two wide receivers on this UCF team. Defense really solid as well. So we're going to see if UCF can get back on top of the Group of 5 mountain, or if the Golden Knights are yet again going to miss out on the opportunity at American Athletic Championship. All right, so here's the schedule for the Golden Knights. You'll see down there their 2019 record was 10-3. In the regular season, went 9-3 with losses to Tulsa, Pitt, and Cincinnati. And then they beat Marshall in the Gasparilla Bowl 48-25. And you'll see up there their home games are going to be in gold, and their away games are going to be in black. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's look at their schedule. First game of the season is a home game. It's going to be a Friday game against North Carolina. And I am really looking forward to watch this game. Both these teams, they match up really well with each other. Both these teams are going to improve from last year. UCF is going to be better than what their record showed last year. And North Carolina, of course, going to greatly improve from what their record showed last year as well. And as I just said, both these teams match up really, really well with each other. Both defenses are evenly matched. Both their wide receiver positions, they have some weapons. Or their running back games, both teams need a little bit of work. But this game is going to come down to the quarterback play. Which quarterback is going to be able to play better, whether that be Sam Howell or whoever gets under center for the Golden Knights. It's really going to come down to that. In my North Carolina video, I said I was leaning towards UCF because it is a home game for the Golden Knights. I really think this game could go either way, though. But I'm going to give the early one to the Knights just because it is a home game, and I'm counting on McKenzie Milton to be back at quarterback. I'm not going to be surprised if North Carolina wins the game, though. Then they get a home game against FIU or Florida International. UCF's not going to have a problem with this one. Florida International does not match up with the talent that UCF brings to the table at all. Knights will win this one at home. Then they get a road game. It's going to be another Friday game. It's going to be against Georgia Tech. So this game, I think, is going to be overlooked by a lot of people. But Georgia Tech is going to improve this year. Georgia Tech's bringing in some good talent, returning some good talent. They just don't have the talent that UCF does. UCF has a lot more talent than Georgia Tech does. It's going to be hard because the game is on the road. It's against a Power 5 team that's going to improve from last year. But UCF is just overall the better team. They should have no problem with the Yellow Jackets in this one. Then it's going to be a Thursday game and yet another road game for the Knights against the East Carolina or ECU Pirates. So the Pirates have been very roller coaster type team. They've always been around that 6-6 mark. I think they were 9-3 maybe 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm correct in that. But East Carolina has always been hovering around that 6-6 and have never really had an elite, outstanding team. And this year is going to be no different. The Knights shouldn't have a problem with the Pirates. We'll win this one. Then they get a game against Tulsa. They're back to playing on Saturday. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, Tulsa was able to beat the Knights in the regular season last year. I believe the final score was 37-34. Tulsa was able to beat them. It was a home game for Tulsa. And UCF did not have the talent last year that they're going to this year. UCF is going to improve from last year again. They had a decent season last year, but a lot of their guys are really going to be taking a step up, especially since their quarterbacks are all coming back and they're going to be able to play well with one another. UCF's defense, in my opinion, is only going to improve, and they are not going to lose to Tulsa 2 years in a row. The Knights are going to beat the Hurricanes. Then they get their bye week, and really when you look at the schedule, this is the perfect place to have your bye week. You don't want to have your bye week right after North Carolina because then you'd have to play 11 games in a row, and you don't want to have your bye week right before Cincinnati because it's just too late in the season. This is the perfect place for a bye week, especially considering the fact that it's before a Friday night road game, and that road game is going to be against Memphis. So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the Memphis program right now. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that Memphis still has good talent, but they're losing their head coach, Mike Norvell. He's going on to Florida State, and with the whole we're not going to be able to practice thing, Memphis's coach is definitely not going to be able to know his guys as well as he'd like to. Teams are going to start getting back to the facilities, I've heard, here in a couple weeks. Some teams are coming back. So Memphis, again, they're not going to be able to get up to their full potential. In my opinion, Memphis is still overall going to be a fairly decent team, and they could give UCF a scare here. Again, there's so much uncertainty surrounding Memphis. We don't know how good they're going to be. But UCF overall, in my opinion, just has much more talent than Memphis does. This is definitely going to be an interesting game to watch. I'll definitely tune into this one, but I'm going to give the Golden Knights the win here against the Tigers. Then they get a home game against Tulane. So Tulane in the beginning of the season last year really got off to a great start. I believe they started 6-0 or 5-1. They were looking like they were going to be a top contender in the American Athletic. And then towards the end of the season just kind of fell off and didn't really do all that well towards the end of the season. I believe they still made a bowl game, but overall just fell through the roof. And Tulane is not returning enough talent to be able to do what they did last year this year. And UCF is going to be in full swing by this point. It's the middle of the season. Knights are going to win this one easily. Then they get a road game against Houston. So Houston, of course, is losing their quarterback, D'Eriq King. Didn't really play all that much last year anyway, but that's a big loss for Houston. And the talent that Houston is going to be returning and that they're bringing in from their recruiting class is not great. Losing lots of key guys on both sides of the ball, D'Eriq King included. I know it's a road game for the Knights, but UCF should have no problem with the Cougars here. Then they get a home game against Florida A&M, and this one also should be no trouble for the Golden Knights. Florida A&M, an FCS team, of course UCF, an FBS team, shouldn't have a problem here. The Knights will win this one easily. Then they get a game against Temple. So Temple's a team that everyone overlooks every single year. They always have some pretty interesting players and guys, playing better than a lot of people expect. And Temple overall is a team that just plays better than people expect every single year. They're always a consistent 7-5, 8-4, 9-3 team. They get into a pretty decent bowl game, and they have an upset here and there. They put teams on upset alert every couple weeks. So Temple is always a hard team to play, but UCF gets Temple at home. Temple is losing some talent and not bringing in enough to replace it. UCF should be able to beat the Owls no problemo. Then they get Cincinnati at home. This game is another interesting one and definitely probably the toughest or second toughest game on the schedule. Cincinnati beat UCF last year. I believe the final score was, I want to say 24-21 or 27-24. It was a 3-point win for Cincinnati, and it really sparked a great season for Cincinnati. This game is going to be a lot more competitive than it has been, though. UCF and Cincinnati have been going back and forth. The UCF has taken care of Cincinnati in past years. And then last year, of course, as I just mentioned, Cincinnati beating UCF. This game is definitely going to be a possible rematch for what the American Athletic Championship is going to bring. Of course, the American Athletic no longer has divisions because UConn is now an FBS independent. So this game could very well be a preview of what we're going to see 2 weeks later. It's going to be a very fun game to watch. I'm leaning towards the Knights in this one because overall I think UCF has the better defense and they get the Bearcats at home. Since both these teams are definitely going to be in full swing, quarterbacks are going to have a big say in this game as well. But I'm going to give the Knights the win in this one. I just think they have too much talent for the Bearcats to handle. Then they get a game against South Florida. It's a Friday game, the rivalry game. It's an away game for the Knights, but they shouldn't have much of a problem with South Florida. A couple years ago, this game was a very, very big game. Both teams were playing really well, and South Florida has had its years where it's been pretty decent and had its years where it's been up there as a top contender. But last year and predicting this year, South Florida just wasn't all that great last year, and they're probably not going to be that great this year, so UCF should have no problem with their rival from the South. So now with everything being said and considered, I know I'm favoring UCF in pretty much every game this season, but my predicted record for them is 10-2. My predicted record for them is 10-2 because North Carolina is going to be a hard game. It's the first game of the season. It's going to be a hard-fought competitive game. You have to play Cincinnati, and that game's going to be a hard-fought competitive game. Your rivalry games on the road against South Florida, and you have to play Memphis on the road. So I said they'd go 10-2 because they're probably going to split North Carolina and Cincinnati, go 1-1 of those two games. They have to play Georgia Tech on the road, which could give them a loss. Of course, Memphis on the road, which could give them a loss. Just because we don't know what Memphis is going to be able to do next year, especially with Mike Norvell being out. And I think 10-2 is definitely a step up. They're going to be a lot better than their 10-2 record shows. It's just they have a more difficult schedule than I think people give them credit for. So now let's move on to their record range, and you guys know this by now. I take this team's worst case scenario along with their best case scenario. Worst case scenario for the Golden Knights is 7-5. Big thing that'll set this scenario off is if McKenzie Milton just doesn't come back. If McKenzie Milton just doesn't get back in the football shape and doctors don't clear him to be able to step on the football field. Not that Dylan Gabriel and Daryl Mack are bad quarterbacks, but losing McKenzie Milton again is definitely going to hurt them, and they have a tougher schedule than what they had last year. Last year they had to play Pitt. Well, they'll have to play another ACC team on the road again, and it's Georgia Tech, but they also have to play North Carolina, which is going to be a hard game, as I just mentioned. Of course, Cincinnati, Memphis, maybe Temple will beat them as well. 7-5 is the absolute worst-case scenario I see for the Knights. They just have too much talent all over the field to lose more than 5 games. Again, just a harder schedule they've had than they've had in past years. And then the best-case scenario is 12-0 because I just mentioned I'm favoring UCF in every game they play this year. The one difficult game on the schedule, I believe, is going to be Memphis on the road. That's their only difficult road game. Georgia Tech might be a little challenging, but East Carolina, Houston, South Florida, they should have no problem with. And then they get their 2 biggest threats on their schedule at home, which is North Carolina and Cincinnati. Both the teams probably going to be ranked at the time that they play. North Carolina definitely will be. Cincinnati has a high likelihood of being ranked when UCF plays them. So they get their 2 biggest threats at home and definitely pulls towards UCF's way. So 12-0, UCF could have yet another undefeated season, I believe, for the 3rd time in 4 years. But my prediction, just because of the uncertainty with McKenzie Milton and the games that they have to play on their schedule, is 10-2. All right, so that's going to do it for my schedule preview record prediction for the UCF Golden Knights. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you're brand new to the channel or enjoy my content. If you haven't done so already, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and tell me what you think about the Golden Knights. And remember, until next time, play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.